We have all had that moment. You're staring blankly at your computer screen, heart racing over a slightly ambiguous email from your boss. Or maybe you are standing in a parking lot, completely unable to remember where you left your keys. When these mental blanks or emotional overreactions happen, our first instinct is to assume that something is wrong with us. We feel like our logical, rational mind is glitching or simply breaking down under pressure. The brain functions through an ancient biological algorithm that prioritizes survival over everything else. What feels like a mental slip is actually a precise calculation of current biological priorities. We tend to think of our minds as highly organized filing cabinets or perfectly logical calculators. But biology has zero interest in perfection or logic. Your brain is a pure survival engine. Every detail you forget and every sudden spike of anxiety you feel is simply the result of your brain calculating exactly what it believes will keep you alive in that exact second. This diagram shows the physical hardware driving that survival engine. The oldest layer is the subcortex. It acts as a constant radar beneath conscious awareness, scanning for immediate threats. Wrapped around it is the newer cerebral cortex, granting us the power to plan long-term. But running both of these systems requires massive amounts of energy, and the brain operates on a remarkably strict budget. It only distributes resources to the neural networks that it calculates will actively promote your survival. Every decision you make, every memory you form, and every emotion you feel is a constant negotiation between that primal need for immediate safety and your advanced capacity for future planning. That strict energy budget explains why you forget things. Deleting trivial details, like the title of a play you saw last month, is actually a deliberate energy-saving feature. To the brain, forgetting is like pruning dead branches off a tree. Cutting off useless information redirects vital nutrients to the networks ensuring survival. So, to force your brain to store a conscious fact, what scientists call a declarative memory, you have to translate that fact into a language the ancient brain understands, the language of survival. You can actually hack this system. By combining intense, focused concentration with a strong emotional narrative, you trick your brain into assigning a high survival score to a completely mundane action. For example, if you want to remember that you locked your car, close your eyes right after turning the key and imagine a physical threat. Or imagine a gang of friendly gnomes trying to get in to wash your upholstery. Either way, the strong emotion forces the brain to encode the memory. You don't have a naturally bad memory. You simply need to attach emotional stakes to the information, convincing your biological hardware that keeping it is vital for your future. But when immediate survival is on the line, emotion immediately overrides logic. This brain diagram points out the amygdala, a little structure in the subcortex that acts as a highly sensitive alarm bell. It receives sensory information fast, bypassing the logical cortex to detect threats in milliseconds. Once the amygdala sounds the alarm, it triggers a secondary system, the hypothalamus. This area floods the bloodstream with chemicals, physically commanding the body to execute one of three survival protocols: fight the threat, flee from it, or freeze in place. The problem is a massive evolutionary mismatch. Your ancient brain code cannot differentiate between a lethal physical threat, like a wild predator, and a modern psychological threat, like a rumor of corporate layoffs. This chart compares those two physical reactions. When facing a predator, the body releases a brief spike of cortisol, an essential hormone that gives your muscles the energy to sprint. But an ongoing rumor of layoffs creates a prolonged plateau of cortisol. Because our ancient hardware processes these modern inconveniences as lethal, drawn-out threats, we routinely poison our bodies with stress hormones, unless we actively intervene. Fortunately, our brain's physical structure is remarkably flexible, a property known as neuroplasticity. We have the ability to manually update our own cognitive software. When a stressful email arrives, the conscious mind can intervene by manually reassessing the threat level, cooling a panicked intensity of 10 down to a realistic 3. Providing the subcortex with this more accurate data helps it dampen the physical alarm. Once you regulate the fear, you can generate positive momentum. To do this, you must override the ancient brain's demand for immediate base pleasure by deliberately pursuing deeper meaning. This motivation triangle is the framework required to assign deep meaning to a task, consisting of the goal, autonomy, and skill. Mastering these elements strengthens neural pathways, providing a mental buffer that makes the brain less reactive to daily setbacks. You cannot delete your brain's ancient survival code, but by consciously applying emotional regulation and defining your own purpose, you can step out of pure survival mode and finally start thriving. Fortunately, our brain's physical structure is remarkably flexible, known as neuroplasticity. We have the ability to manually update our cognitive software. When a stressful email arrives, the conscious mind can intervene by manually reassessing the threat level, cooling a panicked intensity of 10 down to a realistic 3. Providing the subcortex with this more accurate data helps it dampen the physical alarm. Once you regulate the fear, you can generate positive momentum. To do this, you must override the ancient brain's demand for immediate base pleasure by deliberately pursuing deeper meaning. This diagram shows the motivation triangle, the specific framework required to assign that deep meaning to a task. It consists of 3 essential elements: the goal, autonomy, and skill. Mastering these 3 elements strengthens the neural pathways. This mental structure doesn't just improve focus, it provides a buffer that makes the brain less reactive to the insults and setbacks of daily life. You cannot delete your brain's ancient survival code, but by consciously applying emotional regulation and defining your own purpose, you can step out of pure survival mode and finally start thriving.